Visual black screen. A single green radar sweep rotates slowly. Faint, rhythmic pings. Audio low-frequency hum. Radio static crackles. The pilot's voice cuts through, calm but tight. PLOV. O. Visual on the object. No transponder. No IFF. It's holding station at 12,000. Copy that. Switching to IR. Visual quick cuts. A fighter canopy reflects dawn light. A classified airspace map glows red. A blurred thermal image shows a smooth, dark shape against a bright sky. A document stamped UResolve track restricted zone. Narrator V. O. The sky is not empty. It is monitored, divided, guarded. Restricted airspace is the most watched volume of air on Earth. Radar, satellites, electro-optical arrays. Human eyes trained to detect threats at Mach speeds. Visual cockpit HUD overlays. Altitude, speed, bearing. A warning tone blips once. Silence. Narrator V. O. Yet pilots are filing reports. Again and again. Not about weather. Not about debris. About objects that do not fly like aircraft. That do not broadcast like drones. That appear, then vanish. Visual slow push in on a military pilot's silhouette against a hangar door. He looks up. Cut to radar screen. A single track blips. Then splits into 3. Then disappears. Narrator V. O. They are not guessing. They are trained observers. They record data. They log coordinates. They follow protocol. What they are seeing defies standard aerodynamics. It defies standard tracking. Audio. The radar ping slows. The hum drops. A single clean breath. Narrator V. O. This is not a story about belief. It is a story about what is being reported from the cockpit, from the sensor, from the restricted zone. Visual title fades in over a slow-motion jet taking off into twilight. UFO encounters in restricted airspace. Per second 3430, technical explanation, visual animated 3D map of restricted military airspace. Layers highlight civilian corridors, training ranges, test corridors, coastal security zones. Narrator V. O. Restricted airspace is controlled for a reason. Live weapons. Classified tests. National security. Every entry is logged. Every aircraft is tracked. Visual split screen. Left modern ASA radar array. Right EOIR targeting pod footage. Text overlays IFS. Radar cross-section. Multi-fuse fusion. Expert interview. Air traffic surveillance analyst. When a military jet enters restricted airspace, it is never alone. It is painted by ground radar. It broadcasts identification. It is monitored by airborne early warning. The system is redundant. By design, visual animation of a standard aircraft flight envelope. Graph shows thrust, drag, g-force limits. A sharp vertical line appears, breaking past known limits. The narrator V. O. Yet, reports describe tracks that ignore these limits. Objects that accelerate without visible propulsion. That change vector without banking. That disappear from radar while remaining visually present. Visual close-up on a pilot's gloved hand flipping switches. Cut to thermal screen. A smooth, featureless oval moves against the sky. No exhaust plume. No control surfaces. Expert interview. Flight dynamics engineer. Conventional flight requires lift, thrust, control. What pilots are reporting shows none of the expected signatures. No heat bloom. No radar return consistent with metal or composite. Yet they are seen by multiple platforms simultaneously. Visual data stream overlay. Coordinates, timestamps, sensor IDs. A red line marks anomalous behavior. Narrator V. O. The term has shifted. UAP. Unidentified anomalous phenomena. It is a classification of absence.
Absence of identification. Absence of explanation. It is not a conclusion, it is a placeholder for data we cannot yet fit into known models. Visual slow pan across a command center wall of screens. Tracks blink. Some resolve. Some fade to gray unresolved. Narrator VO. The phenomenon is not confirmed as extraterrestrial. It is not confirmed as adversarial. It is recorded. It is persistent. It operates where surveillance is absolute. And it remains unexplained. 430,700 encounter one silent range visual satellite view of a Pacific testing range. Grid lines overlay the ocean. Wind whips across barren islands. Narrator VO incident log. Restricted test corridor. Altitude 22,000 feet. 2 fighter aircraft conducting routine intercept drills. Visual cockpit footage. HUD shows a target at 12 o'clock. Range closes. Pilot 1 VO bogey appeared on visual first, not on radar. It was just there, smooth, no seams, no wings. It matched our turn rate. Then it pulled 90 degrees up. No afterburner, no sonic crack. Just gone, visual EOIR footage. A dark sphere rotates slightly. Thermal background shows normal sky temperature. The object shows minimal heat differential. Expert interview, sensor fusion specialist radar returned a weak intermittent paint, but the optical tracking held. The telemetry showed an acceleration profile that would tear a manned airframe apart. Yet there was no debris. No contrail, no energy signature we could classify, visual map animation. Flight path shows object moving vertically, then laterally at impossible speed, then vanishing at range. Narrator VO, the pilots followed protocol. They disengaged, they logged coordinates, they filed the report. The track was marked unresolved, the airspace was cleared, but the question remained. Audio low bass tone, fade to wind over water. 700,930 encounter 2 coastal vector visual dawn over a restricted coastal zone. Mist clings to the water. A patrol aircraft banks low. Narrator VO restricted maritime corridor. Low altitude patrol. Multi-sensor sweep active, visual radar screen. A track appears at sea level, it moves inland, then stops.
Pilot 2V. Oh, we were at 500 feet. Visual on a transom-shaped object. Silver, no markings. It hovered over the water. Then it dropped, straight down, into the surf. No splash, no debris field. Visual FLIR footage. Object descends rapidly. As it hits the waterline, thermal signature flattens. No heat bloom, no disturbance. Expert interview, Naval Aviation Safety Officer. Water entry leaves a signature, displacement, thermal shock, vapor. None of it registered. The radar track terminated. The visual feed showed clear water, yet the pilots reported a physical presence. We cross-checked tide data. Satellite imagery, nothing. Visual split screen, left pilot cockpit view, right ground radar station. Both show conflicting data. A red banner sensor discrepancy. Narrator V. O. 2 platforms, 1 sky. Different readings. The object did not crash. It did not depart. It ceased to be tracked, yet it was seen by trained eyes under controlled conditions. Audio water lapping. A single radio click. Silence.
Encounter 3-night grid visual carrier flight deck at night. Orange lights. Steam rises. A fighter sits on the catapult. Narrator VO carrier strike perimeter. Restricted security zone. Night operations. Full sensor suite active. Visual cockpit night vision green glow. A pilot scans the horizon. 3 faint lights appear in a perfect triangle. Pilot 3 VO lights at 2 o'clock low. Not aircraft, not balloons. They held position. Then they shifted. 1 step, 2 steps, like a grid. No sound, no heat, just movement. Then they aligned. Then they dropped below horizon in 2 seconds. Visual infrared overlay, triangle of cold spots against warm sea. They slide laterally. No thrust signature. Expert interview electronic warfare analyst. We logged localized M interference. Compass drift, calm static, then clear. The movement pattern was deliberate, geometric, not ballistic, not atmospheric. It suggested control, but we have no data on propulsion, no data on origin. Visual close-up on radar operator's hands. Tracks blink, fade. Operator shakes head. Narrator VO. The crew logged the event. Maintenance reported transient sensor noise. Command reviewed the tapes. The pattern matched prior reports from different theaters, different years, different platforms. The behavior repeated. The explanation did not. Audio carrier deck hum. A distant horn, fade out. 12,001,430 encounter 4 border overlap visual desert restricted zone, fences, radar towers. Dust blows across cracked earth. Narrator VO Southwest Restricted Corridor. Joint Operations Zone. High surveillance density. Visual satellite feed. A faint anomaly moves parallel to the border. It crosses 3 sensor rings. Pilot 4VO, we picked it up on datalink. Ground radar saw a blip. We scrambled. Visual confirmed. Low, fast, silent. It flew straight into a mountain pass. No terrain following radar signature. No avoidance maneuver. It just slipped through. Visual topographic map. Flight path shows object hugging terrain mask. Radar coverage drops to 0 in canyon. Object reappears on other side. Expert interview airspace intelligence analyst terrain masking is standard. Aircraft use it to avoid detection, but the speed at which it entered and exited the blind zone defied known performance. No heat, no exhaust, no control surfaces. It moved like it knew the gaps. Visual split screen, left ground radar coverage map, right pilot's helmet cam, both show the anomaly vanishing into shadow. Narrator VO4 encounters, 4 zones. Different aircraft, different crews, same pattern, proximity to restricted airspace. Evasion of standard tracking, absence of known propulsion. The reports are consistent. The data is incomplete. Audio wind over desert. A faint radar ping. Cut to black. 14,301,700 analysis of patterns behavior visual data wall. Flight paths overlay each other. Red lines intersect restricted zones. Text common variables. Narrator VO, when isolated, reports are anomalies. When aggregated, they reveal structure. Visual animated breakdown. 4 pillars appear proximity to sensitive ZONES, and when ballistic maneuvers, sensor anomalies, deliberate evasion. Expert interview, threat assessment director, the behavior is not random. It clusters around testing ranges. Security perimeters, naval corridors, it avoids engagement. It does not attack. It does not communicate. It observes. Then it leaves, or it fades from detection. Visual slow pan across declassified briefing slides. Blurred photos, redacted coordinates, timestamps. Narrator VO, the objects do not behave like aircraft. They do not behave like balloons. They do not behave like weather. They move with apparent control. They exploit sensor limits. They leave minimal physical evidence, yet they are repeatedly seen by qualified personnel. Visual side-by-side comparison. Conventional jet flight path smooth arcs versus. Reported track sharp angles, instant stops, vertical drops. Expert interview flight dynamics engineer physics does not break. It is either misunderstood or we are missing a variable. The reports suggest either advanced propulsion or a sensor phenomenon we cannot yet model, or both. We cannot confirm, we can only document. Visual fade to a quiet hangar. A pilot's flight jacket hangs on a chair. A logbook sits open, pages filled with coordinates. Narrator VO, the pattern is clear, the origin is not. 17,001,830 technology limitations, visual animation of radar horizon. Curve of Earth, signals bounce, blind spots appear. Narrator VO, we assume the sky is fully watched. It is not. Visual close-up on radar dish rotating. Text overlay line of sight limits, atmospheric refraction, sensor fusion delay. Expert interview, systems engineer radar requires line of sight. It struggles with low-altitude terrain masking. It filters out clutter. Sometimes the filter removes what it should see. Electro-optical systems require light. Thermal requires heat differential. If an object emits neither, it becomes invisible to the machine, but not to the eye. Visual cockpit view, pilot points at empty sky, cut to ground station. Screen shows clear air. Narrator VO. Human vision still outperforms sensors in certain conditions. Pilots see what machines miss. Machines record what eyes cannot verify. The gap between the two is where these encounters live. Visual server room, data streams, redacted files, classified sensor capabilities stamp. Expert interview, intelligence analysts, some tracking systems are classified. Their coverage is not public. Their data is compartmentalized. When a track disappears, it may be a system limitation. It may be a protocol gap. It may be an object designed to exploit it. We do not know, we only know the reports persist. Visual slow zoom on a single unresolved track on a screen. It blinks, then stops. Narrator VO technology is advancing. But it is not omniscient. The sky still holds blind spots, and in those blind spots, pilots keep looking. 18,301,930 strategic implications visual war room. Maps glow, officials sit in silence. A monitor shows airspace integrity under review. Narrator VO unidentified tracks in restricted airspace are not just curiosities, they are operational variables. Visual fighter jets scrambling, radar towers rotating. Policy documents stamped draft. Expert interview, defense policy advisor airspace sovereignty is foundational. If objects can enter, observe, and leave without identification, it challenges readiness. It forces protocol updates. It requires new rules of engagement, not out of fear, out of necessity. Visual split screen. Left pilot pre-flight checklist. Right command center briefing. Both show UAP reporting protocol. Narrator VO, the military is adapting. Reporting channels are streamlined. Sensor fusion is prioritized. Training includes anomaly recognition. The goal is not panic. It is clarity, clear data, clear protocols, clear airspace. Visual jet flies into sunset. Contrail fades. Narrator VO. The phenomenon does not change national policy. The persistence of the reports does. The sky is monitored. The reports continue. The response is measured. 19,302,000 open ENDED conclusion visual wide shot. Empty runway at dusk. Wind moves through grass. A single cockpit light glows in a hangar. Narrator VO pilots are trained to trust their instruments and their eyes. When the two do not match, they report. They do not speculate.